My life is good. I write was hood. I might get to it. Not out the woods, so bro, I got to do it. Be a monster. That's why my mantra.
Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. Today is our Rebellion 420 2024 review. So we're going to get right into this show. I did watch the previous episode of TNA, but I honestly don't remember it, and I didn't take any notes, so it doesn't matter. But if you don't know that much about this show, and you want the too long didn't listen version, a bunch of matches happened, but also a couple of people made some returns. Matt Hardy is returning to TNA. That's sort of the big story that everybody's talking about. Sami Callihan has also decided to come to TNA. So it's becoming a nice little destination spot for talent, which is desperately what they needed. Even though it's not exactly the talent that I like, it's at least an option for wrestlers now. And to begin our review, I want to talk about one of the wrestlers I think has been very underrated for the last maybe 5 or 6 years, and that is Hot Fire Myron Reed. Myron Reed has been a guy who's been around for a while. He's been mostly in MLW. Now he's a member of the Rascals, along with Trey and Zachary Wentz. And he wrestled on this show. He's been on TNA for, I don't know, but he hasn't actually wrestled that much on the show. But technically he is a member of the Rascals, and he worked a 6-man tag on the pre-show of Rebellion. They lost to Austin Bay Club and Leon Slater in a very high-flying, lots of spots type of match. But it's very nice to see guys get an opportunity in TNA. And Myron Reed is still a very young guy, even though he's been around for a while. And the bigger companies not taking a look at him at this point is kind of embarrassing, especially WWE, considering, he would fit right into NXT type of system, except he got a little bit more seasoning. He's probably about 25 or 26 now. But he's got a little bit more seasoning than the average NIL talent and stuff like that. But okay, Laredo Kid achieved his dream of becoming the digital media champion, defeating Crazy Steve. Imagine Crazy Steve being a champion for like 100 days in your company. Good God. Spitfire defeated Decay in a Knockouts Tag Team Championship match. Decay, they stay on the pre-show. The Knockouts Tag Team titles are on the pre-show always. Let's get into this main show, however. Mustafa Ali retained the X Division title over Jake Something, a solid match. A lot of cheating from Mustafa Ali, so it made Jake Something look strong. They had all of his security guards or whatever hold down Jake Something so he could do a 450 splash on him. That was pretty hilarious, and that still wasn't the finish. He ended up cheating by rolling him up and holding the ropes. So Mustafa Ali is doing some very strong work here in terms of being a heel in the business right now. He's doing a really good job. Jake Something is a guy I've always had my eye on. He did not look bad here, so this was pretty good. The next match, Rich Swann defeated Joe Hendry. This match got a lot of attention due to the post-match stuff. So Rich Swann, if those of you have not been paying attention, he finally turned heel. He didn't cut his hair, which is, look is an important part of the business. He refuses to cut his hair, but he's turned heel and joined AJ Francis, who is now literally everywhere. He's in MLW. I think he's in NWA. He's here too. I'm like, oh my God, there's so much AJ Francis. In any event, he now has a stable called First Class, and it's basically Hit Row because there's a bunch of black people acting in stereotypical ways, and it's around money and rap music essentially. So Joe Hendry made a splash when he did his AI rendition of his theme song, where it had Rich Swann and AJ Francis in the video acting out his movements and everything like they were fans of his. The match itself was a nothing burger. It really was just a long angle to build to something else. Hendry is incredibly charismatic, but for some reason, he's not getting anywhere in terms of character and story. Like, he has tons of stories. He's always on the show, but he's always stuck in this lower card, first, second match, pre-show stuff. And he's been there for over a year. I don't know what the idea is, what the plan is with him. In any event, Sean Merriman, who used to play football was in the crowd. Apparently, he is a former teammate of AJ Francis. They talked about this. AJ Francis was going to hit Joe Hendry in the head with a chain he had wrapped around his fist. When he reached back to throw the punch, Sean Merriman grabbed his arm. This led to Sean Merriman getting cheered, and Merriman started to back down AJ Francis, kind of intimidate him. He backed up so far. They was outside the ring when this happened. So they backed up so far that AJ Francis backed into the ring. Merriman then got into the ring. He took his shirt off. He demanded that AJ Francis get out of the ring after he backed him into the ring. He made him get out of the ring. And then while the referee back was turned, Sean Merriman attacked Joe Hendry. So that was a nice little segment for Sean Merriman when he got to be the babyface and the heel in one segment. It was a simple clothesline, so he couldn't botch it too much. And Rich Swann gets the victory. So Rich Swann pins Joe Hendry with the help of First Class. And then one of these females that is hanging around with AJ Francis twerked on the body of Joe Hendry. And it was humorous because it was clipped out of context and posted online. And everybody's like, what the hell is going on? But what was going on was they was mocking him. They jumped him and then they mocked him essentially. But she was twerking on his body, on his lower part of his body, and it was pretty humorous. She looks like a really nasty stripper too. Like, oh my god, like a meth addict at a not so upscale, a very seedy gentleman's club. Next, third match on the show, Full Metal Mayhem. Frankie Kazarian defeats Eric Young. Eric Young was supposedly dipping into his Violent by Design character all over again. I don't care. They botched the finish. It was supposed to be like a flex capacitor or a C4 or whatever from the top rope through a table, but instead they missed it and landed right on the edge of the table. Anyway, that was the win for Kazarian. I don't like either one of these guys. I don't really care. Eric Young most recently said he had to sign an NDA to get his release from WWE because he refused to work for Vince McMahon, and he was rehired by Triple H, and then of course Vince came back and he was refusing to work for Vince and all this kind of stuff. Okay, he wants to be seen as a hero for this, I guess, but all it really did was show that Triple H makes terrible decisions, like signing Eric Young. This Eric Young thing is just never going to get over. It's been 20 years. Like, bro, call it a day, you know. Kazarian, maybe there was a time where he might have been something, but it ain't today. It ain't today. And it's certainly not 2024. Steve Macklin came out. He had a rolled up contract. Says that he had a brand new contract from TNA, and that in this contract he got everything he wanted except one thing, which was a match at Rebellion. And he wants to have that match tonight. It's a contract demand. Santino answered the call and said that he also has a new talent that just signed. And it is Mike Santana, formerly of LAX, formerly of Proud and Powerful, formerly from AEW. And Santana is a sentimental favorite of mine in terms of I always want to see him do well because I followed him on social media. I know his story. He seems like a really cool guy. You know, the AEW thing wasn't working out for him. You know, the tag team thing wasn't working out for him. And then, of course, as usual, the fans started to turn on him because he didn't want to be in the tag team anymore. And then eventually he got released from AEW. I know it took a while because he was injured for like 2 years. But now he's been working solo events at House of Glory. Well, I think he's the world champion there. I'm not sure. But now he's, you know, as a singles act in TNA, he got a big hero's welcome. It was fun. You know, people remembered him. This was good. Santana wins the match. It was actually a very solid match too between Steve Macklin. The unfortunate thing here is the commentary is talking about how Steve Macklin is a gatekeeper in TNA, and you want to prove yourself, you got to go through Steve Macklin. It's like, I wouldn't want to be called a gatekeeper. That's not exactly what I would want for my career, but you know, I'm just built a little bit differently. But Santana rules. Hopefully he gets a big shot here in TNA, or at least just gets an opportunity to do something else. He was not going to get that chance in AEW, and the fans were mocking the idea that he wants to be a solo act. So, go prove them wrong. The TNA Tag Team Championship, The System, which is known as Brian Myers and Eddie Edwards, defeated Speedball Mike Bailey and Trent Seven. I hated this match because I hate all 4 of the people involved. Everybody involved needs to be chucked into the bin. Don't like none of them, so here we are. Match 6, last man standing match, Alexander Hammerstone versus Josh Alexander. Now, they have done the WWE where Hammerstone just goes by Hammerstone. I just got in the habit of calling him Alexander Hammerstone because he's feuding with Josh Alexander. So they just dropped his first name. Okay, fine. Anyway, this was basically a brutal match where they didn't use weapons and stuff like that until near the very end. At one point, Hammerstone kicked Josh Alexander's head into the ring post, which looked brutal as hell and probably should have been something approaching the finish of this match. But the story is basically that Hammerstone removed Josh Alexander's headgear several weeks ago when he beat him in a match. And he's been mocking him by putting it on his bicep and all this kind of stuff. And Josh Alexander's like, oh, I can get, headgear from anywhere, but he hasn't replaced it. He just wants to take it back from Hammerstone. But they had a feud going back to Hammerstone's debut where Hammerstone lost to Josh Alexander and then he kind of went crazy. So this was basically the 3rd match in their series, and Josh Alexander, to nobody's surprise, wins the feud with a C4 spike onto the ramp. A solid match. It wasn't terrible. I think the finish was kind of lame, and the finish was lame because in the middle of the match, probably about 10-12 minutes in, they first started using weapons. The first weapons they used were thumbtacks. I don't call them thumbtacks. I call them thumbtacks. They put the thumbtacks right near the top rope, and the plan was for Josh Alexander to superplex Alex Hammerstone onto the thumbtacks. Hammerstone counters it and does his finisher, which is the Nightmare Pendulum, which is kind of like it's a modified suplex through the thumbtacks, and Josh Alexander rolls outside the ring onto his feet and managed to stave off a loss here. But unfortunately, they buried his finish, so that sucks. Match 7, Knockouts Championship match. Steph DeLander is defeated by Jordan Grace. Steph DeLander was supposed to have Matt Cardona in her corner, but he got injured at an indie show, so he wasn't going to be able to make it. They then replaced him with the Good Hands, who suck ass. Like, could you imagine hiring the inverted Acolytes Protection Agency? That's what the Good Hands are. They're the APA if all of their stuff was made by Acme. Like, if you mix APA and Wile E. Coyote, that's the Good Hands. And for some reason, they decided to use these guys literally all the time. The story of this match was Steph DeLander came out of nowhere and, became the #1 contender. And the question was whether Jordan Grace was really focused on being the Knockouts champion, or was it too much with her bodybuilding career and her desires to wrestle all over the world, because she now wants to defend the TNA title in Japan for a company called Sendai Girls. She wants to wrestle there, and she's been challenging Natalya to come to TNA. So the idea has been, oh, well, is she really focused on this match and being the champion and all this kind of stuff? And then they decided to work this thing as if it was Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 40 with 100 fucking run-ins. And it got to the point I was just like, what is going on? And it didn't make any storyline sense. So Steph DeLander, like I said, had the Good Hands in her corner. Those guys are outside the ring cheating as usual. That's what they do. And then, the lights go out. When the lights come back on, it's PCO. PCO beats up the Good Hands because he can. He's, I guess, their version of Undertaker. Then Khan, who has been feuding with PCO for like the past 90 days, shows up. He beats up PCO. And then the lights go out again for the second time. And when the lights come back on, it's Sami Callihan. And he beats up Khan and the Good Hands, opening the door for Jordan Grace to hit the Juggernaut Driver and defeat Steph DeLander. This was chaotic. All right. Now, unlike WrestleMania 40, where, every interference added to the story, and it was just basically, the bloodline runs in and they take them out. They had that kind of setup with, of course, Matt Cardona was supposed to interfere, and of course the good hands are going to interfere. And then, of course, there would be a babyface to come in and save them. But now you got people who are not even involved in this story. Like Sami Callihan returns out of nowhere. It's like, okay, sure. Dude, whatever. I hate the Warthog, by the way. He sucks. I don't like Sami Callihan. I don't like Sami Callihan. He's a fat turd. World Championship match. The main event of the evening. The wanted man, Nick Nemeth, loses to Moose. So Nick Nemeth, the entire story has been that Nick Nemeth can't beat the system. He can never actually win the big one. He's a choke artist. He's a jabroni. And Moose was going to beat him. And of course they brought Nick Nemeth's parents there. His dad was there. His brother, who is a useless, untalented fuck, he's there too. And it's all set up for Nick to win. And he loses via a spear. Now, his shoulders was up. The referee counted regardless. So they might do a story where he got jobbed out by the referee. And Moose is, of course, celebrating. And then the lights go out again. This is the third or fourth time where the lights have gone out on this show. When the lights come back on, it's Matt Hardy. Broken Matt Hardy. And he, of course, takes out Moose and all the others, and the crowd is going crazy, chanting delete. There's been a lot of talk about Matt Hardy returning to WWE. He swerved everybody by getting people to think he was going to return at WWE, only to return to TNA, where the character was created as a solo act, apparently, because I didn't see Jeffrey with him. So Matt Hardy, who is, one horse who should have been in the glue factory a long time ago, is now returning to TNA to do whatever it is he plans to do. And as this product is taped, it might be better for him to do a lot of his creative outside the ring stuff. Inside the ring, he is a disaster. It's not going to work out. He did a good job, though, of getting people to believe that he was going to be involved with the Bray Wyatt stuff in WWE. And he has been tweeting about it. And he had done some stuff with Bray Wyatt before, when Bray had kind of fell off as a main event guy and was in the tag team division. Him and Matt Hardy were tag team partners. So it kind of fit that, Eric Rowan and Bo Dallas and probably Braun Strowman and Matt Hardy and all of them would be in the Bray Wyatt tribute group that they were probably putting together. But then he swerved everybody and ended up in TNA. So that worked out just fine. It ended up being a nice surprise for the audience. I have zero interest in watching Matt Hardy wrestle. My interest in Matt Hardy wrestling is at zero. None. It's a real shame. And as far as Nick Nemeth is concerned, this might be a setup to a big comeback where they might have him win the title at Bound for Glory. I'm not really tripping off of him losing. It actually makes more sense for him to lose than for him to win on his first match. But it's so TNA that a guy would get a title shot and immediately win it, fresh off of coming to WWE. Nick has always said, in recent interviews, that he doesn't want to sign any contracts right now. So he's not going to be around in TNA forever. So it makes sense. He was under contract for 19 years, as he explained it, and he doesn't want to do a 3-year run anywhere. He just kind of wants to float around and pop around everywhere. And New Japan put a belt on him and will allow him to do that. I think TNA probably would have wanted a longer commitment, and he did not want to give that longer commitment. So he went in there and put over Moose. And we need to be delivered from Moose being a top guy. It's been 5 or 6 years. Enough. He just doesn't have it. All right. The idea that we're going to sit here and watch Moose versus Matt Hardy and think that's a legitimate world championship match in 2024 is pathetic. On this show, there's so many young guys that I've already, I do this every single time I talk about TNA. It's a recurring thing. Everybody that's involved with the system blows. Alicia Edwards, she sucks. Eddie Edwards sucks. Brian Myers sucks. Moose sucks. And these people are the core characters of TNA. They suck. You should bring in new people. They already bringing in new people, but all of the people they're bringing in are old. Like, I love Mike Santana's my guy, but he's been around for a long time. People are going to see him as a tag team wrestler. He's trying to establish himself as a singles act. Hopefully that works out well for him. Jonathan Gresham, who has signed with TNA, he's actually doing a new gimmick where he's not himself when he's not wearing a mask. So his whole gimmick now is he wants to be like a luchador. He wants to wear a mask. He's going to paint his fingernails, and somehow he has white hands. I don't know if he's like bleaching his hands or wearing like paint on his fingers or whatever, so he can have like tattoos on his hands and all this kind of stuff. And so he's hanging around here. He's a free agent who signed with TNA. Sami Callihan's returned. There's talk of Tessa Blanchard coming back. You know, but all of these people are people that you've seen before. That, you know, Nick Namath, you know who these people are. Ash by Elegance, you know, who was Dana Brooke in WWE. You've seen all of these people before. In the early part of the show, you had guys who had never really been given a run anywhere. You know, that's why I focus on the pre-show, because Myron Reed has never really had a run outside of MLW. He's a young guy. You can give him a chance. Laredo Kid is another one. You know, young guy, been around for a little while. Give him a chance. You know, we're going to put Matt Hardy in the main event. It's like, oh, is it 2017? Is it 2016? And we're like, come on. But TNA getting new talent is a positive, because it means that at least people are paying attention, and at least it's an option. I know a lot of people are looking at it from the perspective of TNA isn't being, you know, aggressively going out grabbing, you know, free agents. It's more like WWE passed, AEW passed, TNA will take you. That's kind of how the perception is of like all of these free agents, especially somebody like Tessa Blanchard, who's been out there forever. Everybody's kind of like, WWE doesn't really want you, AEW doesn't want you, TNA will take you. Sami Callihan was another one. He just left TNA not long ago, and he's back already. The idea being, and I thought he was going to AEW because he's such good buddies with Jon Moxley, but, you know, I guess Tony Khan didn't bite on that hook, which has to be the first time in a long time he didn't bite on hiring somebody's friend. Steph DeLander, she's fairly new, you know, in terms of, she was Persia Parada in NXT, but she's been mostly working on independence. I don't know if she's going to stick around in TNA. She probably won't. But she would have been a nice little change of pace from somebody like Jordan Grace as a world champion. Can't complain that she didn't win because of all the shenanigans that they've been doing, and the fact that she literally came out of nowhere. So TNA is one of these places where you don't know anybody's contract status really, and they pop in and they pop out. So sometimes somebody might come in just to work the TV up to that pay-per-view, and then they're gone. Like, I think that's Steph DeLander's story. She's probably not going to hang around for the next set of tapings. And probably the same thing for Nick Namath. They might come back, be in and out, but they're not there for the long haul. And some of the people who are there for the long haul, they don't necessarily get the push. And we're stuck on guys like Moose and Eddie Edwards being top guys. You know, people like Rosemary, who've been there forever. And look, I don't have a problem with Rosemary as a character, as a person. It's just that, you know, as a personality, when you've been in one place for so long, you do start to question, what do you add to the product? And when you're TNA and you're talking about, oh yeah, we're trying to do something completely new and different, they've already destroyed a lot of the goodwill that they created early in January. And because they fired Scott D'Amore. But now we're in this position where what's really changed? Nothing. It's the same people as Eric Young and Frankie Kazarian. You know, the Murder City Machine Guns had their last match in TNA, and they lost to Brian Myers and, oh shit, I forgot his partner already. Eddie Edwards. They lost to those two guys. And I guess they're on their way out. They're reportedly going to AEW, but who knows? They might get swerved and end up right back in TNA. In any event, I like that they're giving opportunities to other people, and they're rotating the talent, and they're bringing in guys. And I like the idea that they used these new signings in creative ways. I like how they used Mike Santana to bring him in. I thought that was nice, reminiscent of Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins, similar to what was that, WrestleMania 38. So I thought that was pretty cool, you know. But there needs to be a big shakeup, especially of the mid and upper cards, where a lot of these older, more established talents who don't add anything to the roster anymore needs to be moved out. And I say this every time I talk about TNA. Your company cannot go forward if Eddie Edwards is a centerpiece of your company for 10 years, 15 years, or whatever. Moose. Like, these guys, even if they were good at one point, they're not good now. You know, and they need to be moved aside. You push them to the side. We need more talent coming in. We need new talent coming in. Hopefully they end up with Jinder Mahal or, you know, Indu Share or something like that. That could be fun. Anyway, like, share, subscribe. Thank you guys for your time. I'll talk to you guys later. Peace out.